The Fall of the House of Usher. The Fall of the House of Usher. The Fall of the House of Usher. Oops. And thumbnail photo because we came unprepared. Thank you, Gideon. That did not work with this camera angle. Books. Hey y'all, and welcome back to Joey's Booked. In today's video, we are going to be talking about all of the books that I have read in July. All the not as many books as I would have liked to have read because this month has been insane. I had band camp. I am getting back into work here in a few days now. We are going to be going back to school with a new school year, which means my life gets a lot more busy. So with all of that, this month I technically read 8 books because I did have one DNF. So my stack is of about 9. Sadly, this month was not my greatest reading month. On top of that, there were some highs and lows. I did find a new all-time favorite this month, but I also had quite a few 2 to 3 star range books, which took up a bulk of my reading. As always, we are going to be going from my lowest rated books up to my highest of the month. So with all of that said, let's get started. So to start things off, we are going to be talking about the one book that I did DNF this month, Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I am not typically a huge reader of classics, and I actually kind of found out that there were some students at my school reading this for their summer reading. So I was like, oh, I'm going to pick that up, way to connect with the kids, that kind of thing. And that didn't end up happening. So good thing I didn't advertise that out. I got about 30-ish probably pages into this, so first couple of chapters, and this kind of writing just isn't always for me. In this, we are following Janie. And Janie is just kind of recounting things in her life. She is an African-American woman, I believe in the 30s. And she's just kind of recounting the things that have happened in her life that has led her to where she is. It's supposed to be kind of a period piece, so it's really supposed to be making comments on racial things happening in the 30s and in the early 1900s, and just being an African-American woman, from what I understand, in the African-American experience. I wanted to really enjoy this. It's just, sometimes when it's a period piece and it's a conversation, it's a little bit different for me than when it's a whole book that's a conversation nowadays, and it just kind of drags me out of it. I was also listening to this on audio as I was reading, hoping that would kind of help me along, and then I just realized I wasn't personally interested in where the story itself was going. So it's not even as much that it's a classic or just that it was language. It was, the story itself wasn't very interesting. It's just recounting some kind of almost slice of life, but more in detail, or at least up to where I got. I wasn't that interested. It wasn't something I wanted to continue with, so I did decide to DNF at like maybe 30%, because this is pretty short. I'm not even sure if it was that far. Moving on, one of the more recent books I read in July was my only 2-star, and that was What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. In this, we are pretty much getting a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, except there's a little bit of a twist with some rabbits, and there's some stuff with some fungi, and it's just kind of a weird twist. It's pretty straightforward. These things show up within the book. And I'm really sad that I didn't enjoy this. This is the second Kingfisher book that I have read, with the first one being, I think it was like Thorn Edge or something. I listened to it on audio a few months ago on a car drive, and I also gave that 2 stars. There's something about T. Kingfisher writing that doesn't fully vibe. I feel like for these being retellings, they aren't always different enough. This was too close to the regular story of The Fall of the House of Usher. It was too close to the original source material for me, and it just didn't work. It also felt like such a slog for such a short book that it just didn't, I don't know. I understand it's Gothic, and Gothic is really hit or miss for me anyways. It didn't work. I will say, though, this physical copy has the most gorgeous in pages that I am obsessed with. And I really hate that I hated this book because I want to keep it for these end pages alone. It's the same on the back. Sadly, though, it didn't work, and I probably will be unhauling this one later. Sadly, my biggest stack of books for this month all fall under the 2.5-star category. So the first of those books, hopefully by the time this video is done, I will have just recently released a video on, so I'm not going to talk about it too in detail. We buddy read None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I am not a huge fan of domestic thrillers, so they don't always work for me. This one especially didn't work for me. If you want to see my full thoughts, I will link that video down below, and you can really check everything out there. Also for a video, which I will still link down below, Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King. And this was another upsetting one. This is such a short novella, and while I really, really wanted to love this, it was just too simple for me. You had another book with amazing, in this case, illustrations. There's a lot of detail to them. The illustrator, Bernie Wrightson, did a fantastic job with this, but the story was just too simple, which is really strange for a Stephen King book. But it was basic. It was easy to read through. It was a quick one, but sadly, it just didn't hit like King's usually do for me. And then my last read of July was also a 2.5 star, and that is Come Closer by Sarah Gran. I've heard some mixed things on this, but usually more positive than good in a lot of the booktubers and stuff that I watch. And I wanted to enjoy this. This is a possession story, and it almost acts like you're trying to figure out if the person is possessed or not, but literally the very first page of this is a quiz asking, are you possessed? It was so straightforward. There wasn't really anything twisty. Everything with the characters in it just made you really dislike them, and I'm not sure if that was even really the point, because it's obvious something is going on, and by the time it became unhinged, I just didn't care. This was another one. I listened to it on audio while I was reading it, and it was super easy to even listen to. It was super easy to read, and it was a fast one. I think the audiobook was only 4 hours. It's on like regular speed. There was just nothing in this that was super special to me, and because of that, I'm giving it 2.5 stars. Now getting into some higher ratings, my 1 3-star book of the month would be Paradise Rock by Jenny Haval. I read this in a video where me and Tabitha went on our McKay's book haul at the beginning of the month, and I think I talked about it a little bit in that video, so yet again, another link I can put down if you want to see more thoughts on that trip. But this one, we are following 2 women. They are like college students in the UK, so university, and they become roommates. One of them is foreign. I think she is Norwegian, which is the language that Jenny Haval typically writes in. This is translated. But anyways, there's like this obsession story that takes place. There's lots of gross scene and like rot kind of scenes. And I think this book was just a little bit over my head when I read it. I didn't fully grasp everything that I think I was supposed to get symbolically. Just not everything quite clicked for me, and maybe it was just too smart for me. I'm not really sure, but because of that, I gave it a 3-star. And that final 5-star book from that new horror and thriller vlog, a new all-time favorite and probably on my best books of the year, The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. I loved everything about this, and I just wanted more and more and more from it. I wanted it to keep getting more unhinged. I wanted it to keep making statements on Korean American identity. I love this. I'm obsessed with it. I am going to forever be recommending it, and I'm so happy because it was one of my most anticipated of the year, and it is one of my favorite covers of the year. In this, we are following Jaeun, and Jaeun is a Korean American girl who is going off to her first semester at college, and she is still living at home with her mom and her dad and her younger sister, who is still in high school, and her dad leaves the family, and he just kind of disappears. And it really tackles, one, the grieving the loss of a parent within the family system. It tackles being a Korean American in today's culture, and even fetishism within Korean American culture and Asian American culture as a whole. And it just makes so many good statements. It is a very unhinged woman kind of book, which I love to see. Everything about this just worked for me. I love this so much. Go pick it up if you haven't. Thinking back now, it may be my top book of the year. We'll have to find out. So if you have made it this far in the video, thank you so much. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. And if you've made it this far, let's leave a rabbit emoji for this gorgeous cover photo of a rabbit, even though the book wasn't that great. Thank you again so much, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. I'll see you later. I hope that was cringy enough for you. Tabitha, you're very welcome. I cannot think of words. Y'all, it's been a long day. Daddy's recording. That means you have to stop talking.